The village of Akwamu was nestled in the heart of the African savanna, a place where the red earth met the endless sky and the rhythm of life was dictated by the seasons. The afternoon sun cast a warm glow across the scene, illuminating the round thatched roof huts that blended seamlessly into the natural landscape. The air was alive with the chirping of birds and the rustling of leaves, while the scent of freshly baked fufu wafted from the cooking fires, mingling with the earthy smell of the forest floor. In this serene setting, life was simple yet profound. The villagers lived in harmony with nature, their days filled with the tasks of farming, crafting, and storytelling. At the center of the village stood a majestic baobab tree, its sprawling branches providing shade for the elders who gathered there to share tales of their ancestors. The village was a tapestry woven from the threads of tradition and community, where every child was raised by the collective hands of the villagers. Adia was a shining star in this village. Her beauty was not just in her physical form but in the kindness of her heart and the skill of her hands. She was renowned for her weaving, creating vibrant cloths that told stories of their ancestors and the spirits that dwelled in the forest. Her fingers danced across the loom with ease, weaving intricate patterns that seemed to come alive in the sunlight. When she sang, her voice was like the gentle breeze that rustled through the grasses, soothing and uplifting. The villagers adored her, and her parents, the village elders, were proud of her accomplishments. Adia's parents, though loving and fair, could not help but favor her slightly. Her talents and kindness had always been evident, and they often praised her in front of the villagers. This subtle favoritism, though unintentional, contributed to a growing sense of insecurity in her sister, Bisa. Bisa, equally beautiful but with a more reserved nature, struggled to find her place in the village. She, too, tried her hand at weaving, but her creations were clumsy and lacked the finesse of Adia's work. She felt overshadowed by her sister's success, and the praise that Adia received only intensified her feelings of inadequacy. Bisa longed to be as loved and admired as Adia, to possess the same talents and charm. But no matter how hard she tried, she seemed to fall short. As the days passed, Bisa's resentment grew, a silent storm brewing beneath her calm exterior. She began to envy Adia's natural gifts, her effortless charm, and the way the villagers flocked to her side. Bisa wished she could be Adia, to have her sister's confidence and skill. But deep down, she knew she was different, and this realization only fueled her jealousy. Despite these underlying tensions, the sisters remained close, their bond strengthened by their shared experiences and the love of their family. They would often walk together to the nearby river, laughing and gossiping as they fetched water for their mother. In those moments, Bisa's envy seemed to fade, replaced by a deep affection for her sister. However, as time went on, Bisa's feelings of inadequacy only intensified. She began to notice the way the villagers looked at Adia, the way they praised her talents and sought her company. She saw how Kofi, the handsome young warrior, couldn't help but glance at Adia whenever she passed by. And she felt a pang of jealousy, a burning desire to be the one who captured his attention. In the evenings, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the villagers would gather around the fire to share stories and sing songs. Adia's voice would ring out, clear and melodious, while Bisa would sit quietly, her eyes fixed on the flames. It was in these moments that Bisa felt most alone, her heart heavy with the weight of her unspoken desires. As the nights turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, Bisa's resentment grew. She began to see Adia not just as her sister, but as a rival, a constant reminder of her own shortcomings. And though she tried to push these feelings aside, they lingered, a shadow that followed her everywhere she went. The village, oblivious to the storm brewing within Bisa, continued to thrive. The crops grew tall and green, the rivers flowed with crystal-clear water, and the people lived in harmony with nature. But beneath the surface, a different story was unfolding, one of jealousy and betrayal, of a bond that would soon be tested to its limits. This expanded introduction sets the scene for the story, focusing on the vibrant African village and the complex relationship between Adia and Bisa. It explores their characters, their strengths and weaknesses, and the underlying tensions that will drive the plot forward. As the seasons passed, Adia's talents continued to flourish. She was particularly skilled at weaving, creating beautiful Kent cloths that told stories of their ancestors and the spirits that dwelled in the forest. Her fingers moved deftly across the loom, weaving intricate patterns that seemed to come alive in the sunlight. The villagers would often gather around her, marveling at her creations and praising her skill. During the annual harvest festival, Adia's weaving was showcased as a symbol of the village's prosperity and creativity. She received gifts of fine beads and colorful fabrics, tokens of the community's appreciation for her contributions. Adia's success was not limited to weaving alone. She was also an accomplished farmer, known for her green thumb and ability to coax even the most reluctant plants into bloom. Her garden was a testament to her hard work and dedication, filled with vibrant flowers and lush vegetables that she shared generously with her neighbors. The villagers would often seek her advice on how to improve their own crops, and she was always willing to lend a helping hand. In contrast, Bisa struggled to find her place in the village. She tried her hand at weaving, but her creations were clumsy and lacked the finesse of Adia's work. She would spend hours at the loom, only to produce a piece that was uneven and lacking in beauty. Despite her efforts, she couldn't seem to master the craft, and her frustration grew with each passing day. Bisa felt overshadowed by Adia's natural talents and the praise she received from the villagers. She longed to be as skilled and admired as her sister, but no matter how hard she tried, she seemed to fall short. It was during this time that Kofi, a handsome and respected young warrior, began to show interest in Adia. His admiration was evident in the way he looked at her, the way he listened to her laughter, and the way he sought her company during village gatherings. Bisa, who had secretly harbored feelings for Kofi, felt a surge of jealousy. She wanted to be the one who captured his attention, to be the one he admired and respected. But Kofi only saw Adia, and this realization fueled Bisa's resentment. As Bisa's jealousy grew, she began to act on her feelings. She started with small, subtle actions, hiding Adia's tools or spreading small rumors that might undermine her sister's reputation. She would whisper to the other villagers that Adia was arrogant, that she thought herself above the rest of them. But Adia, trusting and innocent, dismissed these incidents as accidents or misunderstandings. She couldn't fathom that her own sister could be the source of such petty annoyances. Despite these small acts of sabotage, Adia remained unaware of the danger brewing within Bisa. She continued to weave her beautiful cloths, to tend to her garden, and to live her life with kindness and generosity. But Bisa's envy only intensified, a burning fire that threatened to consume her from the inside out. She began to see Adia not just as her sister, but as a rival, a constant reminder of her own shortcomings. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, Bisa's resentment grew. She started to notice the way the villagers looked at Adia, the way they praised her talents and sought her company. She saw how Kofi's eyes lingered on Adia, and she felt a pang of jealousy that she couldn't ignore. Bisa's actions became more deliberate, more calculated. She began to manipulate situations to her advantage, using her cunning and her charm to turn the villagers against Adia. But Adia, oblivious to the storm brewing within Bisa, continued to live her life with joy and purpose. She was a beacon of hope and kindness in the village, a reminder of the beauty and strength that came from compassion and understanding. And though Bisa's jealousy threatened to destroy their bond, Adia remained steadfast, a symbol of forgiveness and resilience in the face of adversity. This expanded section delves deeper into the characters' emotions and motivations, highlighting Adia's success, Bisa's struggles, and the growing tension between them. It sets the stage for the betrayal that will soon unfold, fueled by Bisa's jealousy and desire for what Adia has. Bisa's jealousy had been simmering for months, fueled by Adia's success and the attention she received from Kofi. One day, Bisa decided that she had had enough. She began to formulate a plan, driven by her desire to take Adia's place in the village and win Kofi's heart for herself. Bisa knew that she needed something drastic, something that would not only discredit Adia but also make her the center of attention. She considered several options, each more devious than the last. She could accuse Adia of a serious crime, use a love potion to manipulate Kofi, or sabotage an important ceremony where Adia was to play a key role. After much deliberation, Bisa decided on a combination of these methods. She would accuse Adia of witchcraft, a crime that was both feared and reviled in their community. She knew that if she could convince the villagers that Adia was using magic to manipulate them, they would turn against her sister in an instant. Bisa began by spreading subtle rumors, whispering to the villagers that Adia was acting strangely, that she had been seen talking to herself in the forest, and that her weaving seemed to have an otherworldly quality to it. She hinted that Adia was using her talents for dark purposes, weaving spells into her cloths that could control the minds of those who wore them. As the rumors spread, Bisa gathered false evidence to support her claims. She planted strange objects in Adia's hut, items that looked like they belonged to a witch, a vial of mysterious liquid, a feather from a rare bird, a piece of bark with strange symbols etched into it. She then discovered these items, feigning shock and horror as she revealed them to the villagers. The villagers, already primed by Bisa's rumors, were quick to believe the worst. They gathered around Adia's hut, demanding that she explain the strange objects found there. Adia, confused and frightened, denied any wrongdoing, but her protests fell on deaf ears. The villagers, convinced of her guilt, turned against her, calling for her banishment. In a desperate attempt to further ensure Adia's downfall, Bisa also sought out a witch doctor, hoping to use a love potion to win Kofi's affections. However, the potion backfired, causing Kofi to become confused and distant, further complicating the situation. As the village ceremony approached, Bisa saw her final opportunity to sabotage Adia. Adia was to perform a crucial role in the ceremony, weaving a sacred cloth that would be presented to the village elders. Bisa secretly tampered with Adia's loom, ensuring that the cloth would be imperfect and unacceptable. During the ceremony, Adia's cloth was revealed, and its flaws were evident to all. The villagers, already suspicious of Adia, saw this as proof of her supposed witchcraft. They were outraged, and their anger turned against Adia. Adia was devastated. She had never felt such betrayal, not just from her sister but from the entire village. She realized that Bisa had manipulated them all, using her jealousy to destroy her reputation and her life. The pain of being rejected by those she loved and trusted was overwhelming. As the villagers turned against her, Adia felt a deep sense of heartbreak. She couldn't understand why they had so easily believed Bisa's lies, why they had turned on her without giving her a chance to defend herself. She felt lost and alone, her world shattered by the betrayal of her own sister. The village, once a place of warmth and belonging, now seemed cold and unforgiving. Adia knew that she had to leave, to escape the hatred and the lies that had consumed her home. With a heavy heart, she packed what little she had and set out into the unknown, leaving behind the only life she had ever known. This expanded section delves deeper into Bisa's motivations and actions, highlighting the complexity of her betrayal and the devastating impact it has on Adia and the village. It sets the stage for Adia's journey into exile and her eventual return, as she seeks to reclaim her place and forgive those who wronged her. Adia's banishment from the village was swift and merciless. The villagers, convinced of her guilt, turned their backs on her, refusing to offer even a word of comfort or a gesture of kindness. With a heavy heart, Adia left behind the only home she had ever known, venturing into the unforgiving wilderness. The savannah stretched out before her like an endless sea, its vast expanse both beautiful and terrifying. Adia had never been alone before, never had to fend for herself without the support of her family and community. But she was resourceful, and she knew that she had to survive. Finding food was her first challenge. She remembered the lessons her mother had taught her about which plants were edible and how to identify them. She foraged for berries, roots, and wild greens, using her knowledge to sustain herself. She also learned to hunt small game, using a makeshift spear to catch rabbits and birds. Her skills as a weaver proved useful as well. She used her knowledge of fibers to create a crude but effective fishing net. However, survival was not just about finding food. Adia needed shelter from the elements and protection from the dangers that lurked in the shadows. She built a simple hut using branches and leaves, crafting a bed of soft grasses to sleep on. She learned to start a fire without tools, using friction to ignite dry wood. This fire became her companion, providing warmth and light in the dark nights. The wilderness was full of dangers. Adia encountered lions, their majestic manes a stark reminder of their power. She saw hyenas, their laughter-like calls sending shivers down her spine. Snakes slithered through the grass, their venomous fangs a constant threat. Harsh weather conditions added to her challenges. She battled scorching suns and torrential rains, each storm threatening to destroy her fragile shelter. Despite these physical challenges, Adia's greatest struggle was emotional. Loneliness and despair threatened to consume her. She had never felt so isolated, so disconnected from the world. She missed her family, her friends, and the familiar rhythms of village life. At night, she would cry out for her sister, for her mother, for anyone who would listen. But the only response was the silence of the savannah. One day, as Adia wandered through the forest, she stumbled upon a small clearing. In the center of this clearing stood a hut, smoke drifting lazily from its chimney. Adia approached cautiously, unsure of what she might find. An old woman, her face lined with age and wisdom, greeted her warmly. This was Acua, a hermit who had lived in the forest for many years. Acua took Adia under her wing, teaching her valuable skills that would aid her survival. She showed Adia which plants had healing properties, how to navigate by the stars, and how to communicate with the animals of the forest. Acua also offered spiritual guidance, sharing stories of the ancestors and the spirits that dwelled in the land. She taught Adia how to listen to her heart, how to find peace in solitude, and how to heal the wounds of her past. Under Acua's care, Adia began to heal. She learned to see her exile not as a punishment, but as an opportunity for growth and self-discovery. She realized that she was stronger than she thought, capable of overcoming even the most daunting challenges. And though she still longed for her family and her village, she knew that she would return one day, wiser and more resilient than before. As the months passed, Adia became a skilled hunter and gatherer, able to fend for herself with ease. She and Acua formed a deep bond, one that transcended mere friendship. Acua became a mother figure to Adia, offering her the love and guidance she had been missing. But Adia's journey was far from over. She knew that she would have to return to her village eventually, to confront the lies that had been told about her and to reclaim her rightful place. The thought filled her with both fear and determination. She was no longer the same girl who had been banished, she was stronger, wiser, and more resilient. And she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. This expanded section delves deeper into Adia's experiences in the wilderness, highlighting her resourcefulness, the dangers she faces, and the unexpected help she receives from Acua. It sets the stage for Adia's eventual return to the village, where she will confront her past and seek redemption. Bisa's life seemed to improve after Adia's banishment. She gained the attention and admiration of the villagers, and Kofi, though still distant, began to show her more interest. However, beneath her newfound status, Bisa was tormented by guilt and paranoia. She couldn't shake the feeling that her actions would eventually be discovered, that the villagers would see through her lies and turn against her. As the days turned into weeks, the village began to suffer a series of misfortunes. Crops withered and died, the rivers ran dry, and illness swept through the community. The villagers, confused and frightened by these events, began to suspect that Adia's banishment was the cause. They whispered among themselves that the gods were punishing them for their injustice, that Adia's presence had been a blessing they had foolishly discarded. Bisa, overwhelmed by her guilt and the growing unrest in the village, found herself increasingly isolated. She couldn't sleep, haunted by nightmares and visions of Adia's accusing eyes. She became paranoid, suspecting that everyone was watching her, waiting for her to slip up so they could expose her deceit. One night, unable to bear the weight of her conscience any longer, Bisa decided to confess. She sought out the village elder, a wise and compassionate woman who had always been a source of guidance and wisdom. Bisa poured out her heart, revealing every detail of her betrayal, the false accusations, the sabotage, the manipulation of the villagers. She wept, begging for forgiveness and promising to make amends. The elder listened, her expression a mix of shock and sorrow. She had always suspected that something was amiss, but she had never imagined the extent of Bisa's deceit. She promised Bisa that she would help her find a way to make things right, but first, the truth had to be revealed to the entire village. The next day, the villagers gathered in the town square. The elder stood before them, Bisa by her side. With a heavy heart, the elder told the story of Bisa's betrayal, of how she had manipulated them all and wronged her sister. The villagers were shocked, their faces filled with a mix of anger and remorse. They realized too late that they had been deceived, that their haste to judge Adia had been a grave mistake. As the truth sank in, the villagers began to see the misfortunes that had befallen them in a new light. They understood that their suffering was not a punishment from the gods, but a consequence of their own actions. They vowed to make amends, to bring Adia back and restore her rightful place in the village. But Bisa's confession was not the only way the truth could have come to light. Perhaps a witness had seen her sabotaging Adia's work or spreading lies about her. Maybe a supernatural intervention had revealed her deceit, a dream, a vision, or a curse that forced her to confess. Whatever the method, the outcome was the same. The villagers were shocked and remorseful, eager to correct their wrongs and welcome Adia back home. As the village began the process of healing and reconciliation, Bisa faced a difficult journey. She had to confront the consequences of her actions and work to regain the trust of her community. It would not be easy, but she was determined to make amends, to prove that she was capable of change and redemption. This expanded section delves deeper into Bisa's emotional state, the village's suffering, and the various ways the truth could be revealed. It sets the stage for the final confrontation and the path to forgiveness and healing. Adia's return to the village was a moment of great anticipation and tension. She had grown stronger and wiser during her exile, learning valuable lessons about resilience and forgiveness. As she entered the village, she was met with a mixture of emotions. Some were ashamed of their past actions, while others were curious about her return. Adia's first priority was to confront Bisa. She sought out her sister, determined to understand why she had been betrayed so deeply. Bisa, aware of Adia's return, was filled with a mix of fear and remorse. She knew that she had wronged her sister in the worst possible way and was prepared to face the consequences. The confrontation between the sisters was intense and emotional. Adia demanded to know why Bisa had betrayed her, why she had lied and manipulated the villagers against her. Bisa, overcome with guilt, poured out her heart, explaining her jealousy and her desire to take Adia's place. She confessed that she had lost Kofi due to her own guilt and paranoia, realizing too late that her actions had destroyed the very thing she had sought to gain. Bisa begged for forgiveness, her words laced with genuine remorse. She acknowledged the pain she had caused and the consequences of her actions. She promised to make amends, to do whatever it took to regain Adia's trust and the respect of the village. Adia, faced with Bisa's plea, had a difficult decision to make. She could choose to forgive her sister, showing compassion and understanding, or she could demand punishment, insisting that Bisa atone for her actions through a task or sacrifice to the village. After much contemplation, Adia decided to forgive Bisa. She realized that holding on to anger and resentment would only perpetuate the cycle of pain and suffering. Instead, she chose to extend her hand in forgiveness, offering Bisa a chance to redeem herself. However, Adia also made it clear that forgiveness did not mean forgetting. She insisted that Bisa must work to regain the trust of the village, to prove herself worthy of their respect once more. Bisa, grateful for the opportunity, vowed to do just that. She began by helping those in need, using her skills to aid the elderly and the sick. She also worked tirelessly to restore the village's crops, which had suffered during her sister's absence. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, Bisa's efforts began to bear fruit. The villagers, seeing her genuine remorse and her hard work, started to accept her once more. They realized that everyone makes mistakes and that true strength lies in the ability to learn from them and make amends. Adia, too, found peace in her decision to forgive. She understood that forgiveness was not for Bisa's sake alone, but for her own as well. It allowed her to heal, to move forward without the burden of anger and resentment. She continued to live in the village, but now she did so with a newfound sense of purpose, using her experiences to help others and to teach them about the power of forgiveness and redemption. This expanded section delves deeper into the emotional confrontation between Adia and Bisa, highlighting the complexities of forgiveness and the path to reconciliation. It sets the stage for the final resolution, where both sisters work towards healing and rebuilding their relationship and their community. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, Adia and Bisa began the long and difficult process of rebuilding their sisterly bond. It was not easy. The wounds of betrayal ran deep, and trust had to be earned back slowly. But both sisters were determined to heal and move forward. Adia, with her newfound wisdom and strength, took the lead in reconciliation. She understood that forgiveness was not just about Bisa, but about herself as well. She wanted to free herself from the burden of anger and resentment, to find peace and closure. Bisa, filled with remorse and a desire to make amends, was eager to prove herself worthy of Adia's trust. The village, too, began to heal. The community learned a valuable lesson about the dangers of jealousy and the importance of forgiveness. They realized that their haste to judge and their willingness to believe lies had almost destroyed one of their own. They vowed to be more mindful, to listen before acting, and to always seek the truth. As Adia's reputation was restored, she became a respected figure in the village. She used her experiences to help others, teaching them about the power of forgiveness and the destructive nature of jealousy. She shared her story, using it as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked emotions and the importance of compassion. Adia's future was bright. She continued to weave her beautiful cloths, but now they told a different story, one of resilience, forgiveness, and the strength of sisterly love. She and Kofi eventually reunited, their love stronger than ever. Together, they built a life filled with purpose and joy. The final moral of Adia's story was clear: jealousy is a poison that can destroy even the strongest bonds, but forgiveness is the antidote that can heal even the deepest wounds. In African culture, forgiveness is not just a virtue, but a necessity for building strong communities and maintaining harmony. Adia's journey taught the villagers that true strength lies not in revenge or resentment, but in compassion and understanding. Years later, when children asked about the story of Adia and Bisa, the elders would tell them of a tale that taught them the value of forgiveness and the dangers of jealousy. They would speak of two sisters who, despite being torn apart by betrayal, found their way back to each other through love and forgiveness. And they would remind them that in the end, it was not their talents or their beauty that defined them, but their capacity for forgiveness and their willingness to heal. This expanded section delves deeper into the themes of reconciliation, healing, and forgiveness, emphasizing the importance of these values in African culture. It concludes the story on a hopeful note, highlighting Adia's growth and the village's newfound understanding of the destructive nature of jealousy and the transformative power of forgiveness.